I'm here at JamPlay. Always excited to be here. This is a unique experience for me, doing a live lesson interaction. So I'm looking forward to this. Today we're going to do some explorations around solo guitar playing in a couple of different styles. Since it's the 4th of July weekend, I figured we'd take a look at one of my favorite seasonal tunes, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. No, wait, is that what we're doing today? We're not doing the Christmas one today?
No, this is the 4th of July sale.
4th of July. Okay, so what about the Star Spangled Banner?
Yeah, we could do that.
We could do that.
Yeah.
So, so I get a lot of questions about, well, how do you create a solo guitar arrangement? The answer is a couple of things. So in the first series that I did for JamPlay, I talked a lot about chord alchemy, which was the idea of how melody and chords come together. And I talked about the three elements of music. So I would talk about the idea that a melody is one note after another, a harmony is more than one note at a time, and the rhythm is sort of the third component that kind of holds everything together. Today, I think what I was thinking we would do is we would take a look at the melody for the Star Spangled Banner, get you guys familiar with it, and then I'll improvise a solo guitar arrangement. And then what we can do is we can look at what I've done with that arrangement and how I got to it. Some of the ideas of like drop two voicings, non-functional harmony, chromatic motion, and just using your ears to generate options. And then we can talk. I guess you guys explain to me. That's what people are going to be talking to me through the.
We'll be asking.
We'll
be channeling questions to you as they are appropriate.
Like a Zen thing.
Yeah, you won't. Yes, no. We'll be putting them up, and you'll be able to interact with them.
Okay.
As we
So
go.
we're going to be channeling like a spiritual medium, like voices from beyond.
For now, yes.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at some basic ideas. So, if I were going to be doing a solo guitar arrangement, the first thing I would do is I'd become really, really familiar with the melody. So, and the great thing about the Star Spangled Banner is it's not very many chords, and it's a great study in triadic motion, triadic movement, basic chords, diatonic movement, and there's just not that many chords in the entire chord progression. So if we look, let's pick a key. E's a good key. I like the key B because it gives me a lot of nice open strings. I can play with a lot of textures, and the chord sequencing is really straightforward. And the opening melody, let's take a look at the melody. Let's see what's happening here. There we go. Gonna just get a better sound for you guys. Okay, so in the traditional melodic approach is it starts off on the E major chord, which is the one chord, and it outlines the triad. Okay, straight up E major triad. Staying on the E triad, moving to an F sharp, to a B chord. See? So that's this first part of the melody, and that repeats. Still on the E, F sharp, and then the bridge. That final little section.
Hey, John. We've had a number of people ask if you will be covering the chords. They want to be able to play the
Yes.
chords. Maybe talk about where you're going.
So the first thing we're going to do is, in approaching how to develop a solo guitar arrangement, is to know the melody. So I wanted to review the melody so you guys would have a sense of where the melody is. If you already know the melody, then that's done, and we're already past that. The chord sequencing is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to really want to sing, but I'll give a rough guesstimate. So the first chord is E. And then F sharp, and then B, really basic triads, and then staying on the B, and then back to E. So that basic sequence is, please forgive my singing. And then it gets more complicated on the bridge because you can imply a lot of different harmonies, but you can start off with still staying on E, and then there's an F sharp right there. There's a B. Back to E, E, back to A. That's a B with an A in the bass. F sharp. Okay? Really straightforward chords. 1, 4, 5, 2 minor, and then sometimes a 2, 7. And then, so that was just a straight up G, E. I'm playing with in fourths. B, B, F sharp. So B, E, F sharp. E, B, A. All diatonic chords. Okay. And then, or so those are the basic chords. And as I'm going through developing the arrangement, I will call out chords as I'm going and try and explain or take apart how I arrived at the changes in chords. Are there any questions so far?
Not so far.
Oh, good. All right. You can have a choice of sounds. Like I like the idea of doing it with a rock sound, because you can get some of those nice artificial harmonics. But for the purposes of this, we'll do that at the end. That was a good suggestion by Chris at the beginning to do that. So let's look at the idea of how do you start an arrangement. That's always the first question I get, is how do you start the arrangement? Well, there's a couple of ways to approach solo guitar. You can always put a chord with every single melody note, or you can build an arrangement starting with really simple and moving to more complex. For now, I think I'm going to take a somewhat gospel approach in terms of the voicings, and I'm going to use a lot of ideas called drop two voicings. So I'll just explain the drop two voicing really quickly. So if I'm looking at this E chord, that simple bar chord, and I'm playing the low E string and just these three notes, I'm going to drop the second voice, that E note, down an octave, and I get that. So I've taken this triad, so the notes B, E, and G sharp. I'm dropping the E an octave, and now what I get is that nice open voice. I mean, I can always play that, but there's a different texture to this because as I voice lead this, so that's a E dropping down to a B, which I got from taking this B triad and dropping the third an octave and getting that. Same with the A. So that's a drop 2, taking the middle voice and dropping it an octave. So in gospel music, a lot of times you'll hear these big open harmonies, especially with tenths, you know. And the idea is that you're opening up the voicing. Now, a lot of the things that I talk about when I teach is the idea is that the guitar isn't one 6-stringed instrument. A lot of the stuff I talk about in the series is that the guitar is 6 1-stringed instruments. And as I'm thinking of the arrangement, I'm looking at the melody in relationship to any other notes that I'm going to harmonize with the chord progression. So if I'm going to start, first I think of an introduction. I know the opening note is a B. And one of the tricks I always like to do is I like to look at pedal tones. So I take a pedal tone with this open B, and I look at what can I do that would be interesting to set up an introduction. Well, that's a really nice A flat minor 9 chord. So I'm playing A flat, G flat, B flat, and open B. Okay? And then I can just drop that chromatically, which is G13. And then I can drop that a little bit more chromatically to F sharp minor 11. And then I can drop the bass note. And I get that nice little sequence. And that's a good little introduction for this, you know. So I've got that nice B ringing. Okay, so, and then I can drop that B into, and I've got that E triad. And I'll do this rubato without time right now so that you guys can get a sense of the chords. So, everybody pretty much knows this shape, right? Root, 3rd, 5th, root. And then this nice little lick where you drop, little gospel thing there. I'm going to stick with that idea I started with, which was the drop 2 voicings for an E, for a B. So what did I do there? So
That's beautiful, John.
Thank you.
Very beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's a pretty traditional dominant climb in jazz. That particular chord I really like a lot. Is instead of playing 2 minor in the key, which is that, or I'm playing 2/7. So to get up to that B, I knew I wanted to do a climb, and so I took 4 chords. I took this F sharp 7. Root, flat 7 and 3rd, 2 of that chord, diminished version of that chord, inversion of that chord, and then this is called a tritone substitution, where I'm taking this F sharp 7 and I'm substituting a dominant chord a flatted 5th away. So the way that sounds in context. Just a little bit of embellishment, and again, out of time. Again. That's a really interesting chord. It's one of my favorite chords. So what I'm playing here is the root, the flat 7, the flat 9, the sharp 11, and the 13. And I'm getting those 2 notes, this flat 9 and the sharp 11, by putting both of my fingers out. Can you see that on the camera, guys? So I'm playing those 2 notes with 1 finger, just that 1 finger. So B flat 13 or B13. Root, flat 7, 9, 13, or 3, 13. So let's review that from the top. So I've got A flat minor 9, G 13, F sharp minor 11, F major 7 sharp 11, and then back to the top. Okay? Really straightforward. And then back to the E, back to the B. And then I'm going to do a little substitution here, which is kind of fun. A little Hendrix chord there, C7 sharp 9, which is again a tritone substitution for that F sharp. Okay, so let's back that up again. So E, B, so that's the third, the root, and the fifth. And then I can drop this to either here, or if I want to stay really inside. Now that chord I really like. It's basically this, but I'm using the open A string instead. B triad. Hope that's clear. All I'm playing is F sharp, B, and D sharp with an open A string. And then to an A. And then this is a nice little fun thing I can do is always throw in a dominant, like a diminished chord. Do you guys know this chord? Okay, let's back that up again. Just back to that triad. Any questions so far? What do we got? Or a lot of people just shaking their heads?
We've got a lot of people that would be interested in hearing about your signal and your tone, maybe towards the end of the segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything from what equipment you're using to why the semi-hollow body guitar, switching between clean, distortion. There's a lot of questions, so we can get to those.
Do you want to
in
do
a minute.
one real quick before we overwhelm people with the arrangement, or do you want to do that later?
Let's do the tone in a little while. You
Okay.
can get through the playing, and then we'll maybe in 15 minutes or so we'll give you a
Yeah, let's
chance to
finish
get
the
through
arrangement.
tone. Yeah,
Let's finish
sounds
it.
good.
Okay, so I've got. And then to that bridge section. E. Now, what all I've done for this to move up, I'm climbing up with this melody, is I'm taking the diatonic chord sequence and drop 2 voicings. And I love this chord. It's a great chord. E, G sharp, B, F sharp, B, E. Now there's a million things I could have done there. I could have gone, which I like. With this guitar, I have a lot of register I can go. A little more Holdsworthy. And that's almost the introduction again. So all I did there was I took the F sharp that we started with, and instead of climbing, I went to this nice, everybody knows this one because they all play it. But all I did was I removed the bass note, and I played this nice little melody. So again, let me get back into context.
Hey, John, talk real quick again and review how this fits into the latest series that you've done.
Yeah.
Because we've got some people talking about, yeah, it's really great to watch. where could I learn more? Where could I find more about this sort of style? Because this is really quick what you're doing here.
I agree.
So yeah, tie it in real quick, and then get back to the arrangement by all means.
So basically, the expectation is that you guys should know how to do this, and I have nothing to do with it. And basically, I'm an invisible teacher. No, I'm kidding. So the first series I did for JamPlay was called Chord Alchemy, and it was based on some of the work that I'd done studying with Ted Green. And I have a real fascination with the idea of how you play harmony on the guitar, whether you're playing as a solo guitarist, or you're playing as an accompanist, or you're playing in a band. And it's almost done, right, guys? I mean, I think it's going to be like another couple weeks, and then it'll be released. Something like that?
Yeah, it's being transcribed right now.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be too much longer.
Yeah, Chris and I basically were here a couple months ago, and I did 2 or 3 days of recording of a new series called Chord Alchemy Part 2, which is a more in-depth look at what we did. Now, the first series is a basic breakdown of how I see one can study the guitar. I talk about topics like neck mapping, seeing the guitar differently, generating options, how you can move away from a shape-based playing into a more informed-based playing in terms of your decisions and your ears and your creative process. And in Chord Alchemy 2, which is going to come out in the next couple of weeks, I go into more depth into specific things like we're talking about today, like drop 2 voicings, chord substitution. I can't actually remember all the things because it was a couple months ago, but it's a pretty in-depth exploration of chord application to the instrument. And that's sort of my fascination. I'm not a super chops guy. I mean, I have a few chops in my hands, but at my age, I'm just happy I can pick up a guitar. So I like playing harmonic style guitar because, like, if I'm playing a gig where I can play. I just like that I can play the little melody. Right? And to me, that's pleasurable. I used to, when I was younger, like to play a lot of notes, and I still play a lot of blues, so I'll still play. But the fun thing about playing the blues when you know a lot of chords is it's not just. Right? So I can have a little bit more fun with the harmonic application of what I'm doing. Is that helpful, guys? Yeah. And that's pretty much what I talk about in these 2 series, and it's a really valuable resource here on JamPlay. And I'd love to hear from you guys, by the way. I got a lot of great comments that helped me formulate the second series, because the feedback that I got from guys who were going through the first series helped me shape what I did in the second series. And I think this is great, Chris. A lot of what we talked about was integration, right? Application. Like, how do you apply these ideas to real-world scenarios and working with tunes, either as a solo player or as an accompanist. So hopefully that's helpful.
Great. So let's get back into the arrangement real quick, and then
that's assuming I remember where we were. What key were we in?
Yeah, I don't remember either.
We were in E, I think.
H.
We were in H? Okay, let's put an H. Back to E. Okay, we think we were on the bridge section, which is. And this is my favorite part. Now, there's a million things you can do there. That's a little trick that I can talk to all you guys about. Any note can be on any chord. It really depends on your ear. Now, there's some things that I know will work and some won't. But for example, almost any minor chord can become a dominant 7th chord in one way or another. So if I'm playing something where it's an F sharp minor and I make it F sharp dominant 7 sharp 9, it works. But with notes, like a lot of times when you land on a solid note, you can do what's called non-functional harmony, which is where you choose a chord because you like the color of the chord from where you're coming from to where you're going. And this is just a kind of artistic thing. So I can end up that's not really functional harmony, but it has a nice sound. And then the ending. So this is a really straightforward triads. B. I mean, you could make this anything. Right? I like that. To that altered chord. Instead of landing, it's E major 7 sharp 5. What's a nice ending here? A major. So that's basically the process that I would go through, and then when I've got a sequence or a coloration or something that I like, I'll mess with it. Now, obviously, if I were to do this with a rock sensibility, I would probably approach how I do fills and things in between with a different idea. With a jazz sensibility, I'm going to approach more with color and texture and kind of cool harmonies. With a rock thing, I'm going to do what makes things sing out. When you have more distortion on, you have to be careful of the intervals in between because some things just don't quite work when there's a lot of distortion on it. And I'm getting, I can feel there's a burgeoning question, so I'm gonna take questions.
Well, this question is actually, you answered it a little bit, but maybe you could just talk about it a bit more. For a completely simplistic explanation, when improvising, would you mainly stick with the notes that fall within the current chord and the progression?
That's a really good question. So it really depends, Ryan. So like I started at the very beginning, I played the melody, right? And I became really familiar with how the melody plays across the neck, and I would play it in different registers. I probably played in a bunch of different keys to find a key that felt good for me if I was actually writing an arrangement. Once I've got the melody in my ears and my hands, my particular style is I just don't care. I know how functional harmony works, and so I'll start with those assumptions. Where does it fit within the harmony? If it's a G sharp, and I know it's on the one chord, then I'm going to be looking for this kind of chord. But maybe I want the G sharp in the low register down here. A lot of it depends on my ears. Now, my personal thing after a certain point is I play almost entirely by ear now. So I'm listening for what all the voices are doing in relationship to each other, and I will start with the framework of the song, and then I'll start to extend the harmony as I move through the melody. Does that make sense for you? I love waiting for the internet to respond.
I don't think they're going to respond quick enough, but
Okay.
we'll assume yes.
Okay, we're going to assume yes, Ryan.
All right, next question related from Michaela Mendoza. How do you decide on what chords to use for the arrangement?
That's an interesting question. If it's a song that people know, any given song is going to have a certain basic chord sequence that defines the song. The Star Spangled Banner, the chord sequence is pretty much, defined as... Right? That sequence of E, F sharp, B is defined by, I always forget the woman's name who wrote this. It's the song. So deciding on what the chords are in terms of the basic arrangement is already given to me because the song exists. At that point, you can start looking at how harmony extends. And we do talk about this in Chord Alchemy too, which is chord sequencing. So for example, on an E chord, when it's really that strongly defined, the only thing I could see adding would be maybe a ninth. If you want to get really esoteric, you can add a fourth. It's not the most comfortable of chords. But that particular straight up voicing, you know, here. And then, I mean, the melody is right here in this major, E major chord. The beginning of the tune. So the chords and the melody go together, and that's a really important thing to start understanding is that so one of the things I really talk to a lot of my students about is the idea that scales and chords are systems of organization. So what you're looking at when you're looking at a melody and when you're looking at a scale and you're looking at a chord is a way that Western harmony has organized things that appeals to our ear, okay? And over time, if you listen to enough of these, you'll start to hear it a bit more. In terms of choosing a chord sequence, the song is given, and then I understand through a study of harmony and music in my ears how to extend that. Is that helpful? Because if it's not, I'm just going to start from the entire beginning and piss these guys off.
You don't have to do that.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Okay, next question.
Yes, sir.
From Casey,
Hey, Casey.
Simons. Are you using a pick at all, or is it all finger style?
I can do either. I mean, I can do literally the same thing. Right? Or I can do it. No. There are two different sounds. The brush in jazz, like the sound of the pick, has one sort of thing. And then the sound of the fingers, I can isolate a little bit more easily. And that plucked sound is a bit different than. It's a little more muted when I strum. And it's a question of taste, choice.
Okay, and this one is from MS. What makes an arrangement gospel as a distinct genre of chord melody?
I think that was me just saying in terms of how I hear. I've played quite a bit of gospel music with people, and the arrangement, like choices that I'm making right now in terms of the harmonic approach, the voice leading approach, and the sensibility has a more church sensibility. If I were to do this as a blues sensibility, you would hear a completely different thing. You would hear, you know, so I would probably interject more textures like or just straight up blues. I'd have to work out something like that. So in a gospel sense, when I'm going like these kinds of voices, that's got a classical kind of church-like vibe in my ears. Especially there. Does that make sense to you, my internet pal?
I think so. Maybe you could talk about your setup now. And,
My setup?
And your tone and how you're getting...
I have no tone. No, I like this. It was in key, actually. This is a kind of old beat-up Epiphone 335 that DiMarzio gave me some fun pickups for. I think these are the BB King Air or something. I don't remember the names, but they're really nice little pickups. I put some mother of pearl in just so I know where I am because it's hard to see in the dark. It's just a cheap 335, but it's a fixed tail and it has an extended range, which I like. The tone I'm getting is really kind of interesting. I'm basically playing through a line 6 helix directly into their broadcast. And I'm using a little Eric Johnson patch that I made, which is three different sounds of clean, which is a chorus sort of. You can hear that little chorus. You know. And then I can go to a crunch sound, which is just basically more. Kind of a cool lead sound. Sorry, Eric. But it's just like a nice 3-channel patch, and I've got tons of stuff on this that are just straight up jazz patches or a straight tone. And for this kind of a recording situation where you need to keep the room really quiet and it's a direct feed, I'll use something like this because it's a USB or an XLR direct out. And they're pretty decent tones. It's not something I would particularly use live, but for this kind of situation, it's really easy sounding. I don't know what it sounds like to you guys out there in internet land.
Everybody's saying it sounds great.
Everybody says it sounds
we've got
great?
Tons of questions about the
Really?
sound, yeah.
Awesome. For me, just so you guys know, what I'm hearing here is mostly the acoustic sound of my guitar, and I hear a little bit of the sort of amplified sound. I will tell you this. So I pretty much sound the same on every guitar and on every amp and every rig, and most of what it is comes from a really, well, kind of embarrassing stories. I was like 20 years old. I was living in Boulder, and 21 years old, and some friends of mine were doing a gig with Robin Ford, and I got invited to sit in with Robin and play the show. And he likes to play with young guys. That came out wrong. He likes to do gigs with younger players. And I got up on the stage, and at that point in my life, I wasn't a very strong player. I was playing a lot of Mahavishnu Orchestra. I didn't know about tone. I didn't really know about time or playing. And I got up and I tried to play a lot of notes with no tone. And Robin, did his thing, and it was just, really, really hard night. But what I walked away with after the gig was something I teach about, which is the value of a single note. So most tone, and any player that you like, is in the guy's hands. If I'm playing a guitar, most of what I'm doing is it's the amount of pressure that I'm putting in my left hand and choosing to really hear all the voices. And there's a kind of fine balance between pressure and how my hands are attacking the strings. And finding that is basically the goal of any musician, how you find your voice on the instrument. There are guys who have incredible control and technique at crazy velocities. I don't have that, but I can play a melody pretty, and I can play some pretty chords, and that's what I work on most of the time, just sounding good when I play.
Okay, this is an interesting question. I want to hear the answer myself. So can you change, I'm assuming this song, from a major key to a minor key and keep the same chord progression relationship?
No. Because the melody that defines, it could be interesting. The melody defines this, that G sharp defines the E major chord. I could, I'd have to really think about that. Wow, could you do that? So make it minor. Doesn't really carry the same harmonic sensibility to me. I think that when you change the fundamental tonality from major to minor, you're A, invoking a Cole Porter tune, and B, that's a very inside joke that no one's going to get, and B, you're basically changing the song, and I don't think it would actually work. What I was saying before is you can have a minor chord, and you can substitute for that minor chord an altered dominant 7th chord, and you'll probably end up with the same functionality with a little bit more color.
Cool. Well, we got time for a couple more questions here.
Okay. I want to make sure Chris is happy.
I think
I'm
he
very
is.
happy.
Are you very happy? Are you experiencing joy right now?
Other than the fact that I can't remember a password to get my Waves licenses, I'm good.
That's it? You're good? Okay, life's good. Do you feel that harmony can be played with a lead without a rhythm foundation? Do I feel that harmony can be played without a lead, without a rhythm foundation? I have to understand what that means. I have to think about that. Harmony can be played with a lead, with a melody without a rhythmic foundation. I mean, rhythm is part of it, whether it's consistent rhythm or not, rhythm is going to be there. If you're talking about soloing with chords, I mean, I do it all the time. If people are playing blues, I will often play to get to that A chord, right? So I mean, you can use harmony in soloing all the time. In fact, knowing a lot of different chord voicings is a really great way of generating arpeggios and melodies when you're improvising. I do it all the time. I'm looking down. I'm looking over. Are there more questions?
Yeah, we have one from Eli here, and he's wondering what your background is. Are you coming from jazz, blues, rock?
Mostly, I'm actually a blues player, to be honest. I had a lot of time with Ted Green. I played for a really long time in a band called the Zen Blues Quartet. The Zen Blues Quartet was Mike Finnegan, who played with Hendrix and Bonnie Raitt and Joe Cocker and Taj Mahal, and I think he's out with Bonnie now, and Steve Ferroni from Tom Petty's band, and Tim Scott from Jack Mack and Tower of Power, and myself, and I think Jeff Young was in the band for a while from Steely Dan and Sting's band. And I mean, I mostly played blues. But I have a 25-year history studying with Ted Green, and he was my main guitar teacher, and most of that was harmonic application for jazz. I would never bill myself out as a jazz guitar player. I have too much respect for the style, and I have too many friends who are really, really. I have a friend Andreas Oberg who's just an insanely good jazz guitar player who I would never step in his toes with.